The people of Japan are renowned for having one of the longest life expectancies in the world. In a population of approximately 125 million people, over 29% are aged 65 and over. As the elderly population is now a significant market in Japan, a country recognized for its prowess in inventing diverse products, businesses are actively developing and introducing products and services to cater to the needs of this expanding demographic. In addition to businesses related to well-being and health for the elderly, there are some others that have grown significantly. With the fourth longest life expectancy globally, Japan has one of the lowest birth rates in the world. Reduced population growth results from a birth rate lower than the death rate, leading to Japanese society being predominantly elderly and lacking people of working age. In a nation abundant with elderly folks, it's estimated that by 2040, Japan will have a population death rate of as many as 1.7 million people per year. Grand flower arrangements, limousines, and intricately carved wood and stone slabs in various sizes and styles are on display, accompanied by advertisements from salespeople keen on capturing attention. It resembles a typical trade fair, except that everything within this vast hall is associated with death. This event is the Life-Ending Industry Expo, where businesses associated with death gather to showcase products, engage in discussions and do deals. The event was first held in 2014 and has since been held annually, with the number of entrepreneurs, visitors and the event space increasing each year. We're somewhat taken aback by the relatively cheerful atmosphere, which appeared strikingly different from the somber tone that typically accompanies thoughts of funerals and death. One attendee expressed his amazement at some of the innovations to be seen at the expo, citing examples such as prayers being chanted by robots. This attendee came here with the intention of gathering information and making preparations. Another participant notes that living in Japan has changed, emphasizing the importance of elderly people preparing for the final stage of their lives. What we see leaves us both impressed and curious about why this place is so receptive to presenting death-related products and services resembling a trade fair. Urban Funes, one of the largest funeral service providers in the country, told us that the death-related business in Japan is booming. Minoru Nakanishi, the executive director of Urban Funes, says that Japan has a high mortality rate. It's experiencing an increase in the number of older people, coupled with a decline in births. The population aged 60 and above is growing, resulting in a higher mortality rate. There are, however, fewer and fewer descendants. Traditionally, when someone passes away, Japanese people often keep the body at home to be present for a final meal with the family. As society shifts towards a more nuclear family model, busy work lives and limited living spaces make hosting funerals and accommodating guests at home increasingly impractical. Therefore, the responsibility for handling that which needs to be handled after a death falls upon the company. The increased use of funeral services does not necessarily mean greater income. Instead, it makes business operations more challenging. Nakanishi explains that with the pool of labour decreasing, funeral businesses, which previously heavily relied on manpower, have had to explore new services, quite distinct from those of the past. Consequently, the company has become a leader in the industry by embracing digital business operations. Urban Funes is developing its app so that in the future, customers can handle everything online, offering a solution to the diminishing workforce. The average cost of a funeral in Japan is around $20,000. This covers venue rental and food for attendees, which is a substantial sum considering the typical number attending a funeral in Japan is no more than 20. This is because the size of the family has contracted. The organization of funerals has begun to shift from expecting 100 guests to close family only. For this reason, another business related to death has emerged.
If you want to see more great content from all over the world, please like the video, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. Thank you.
こんにちは。
こんにちは。
I'd like to see your room.
はい。こちらにはいろいろなタイプがありますが、どちらを？
多分これです。
そうですね。はい。わかりました。ご案内いたします。
This spacious apartment in Yokohama may initially appear to be luxury accommodation for a large family. Actually, it's a service provided by Lastel Company, a mortuary service provider. The concept behind this service is to recreate family intimacy as closely as possible, allowing the bereaved to share one last moment with the deceased in a traditional farewell. The room spans approximately 80 square meters and is divided into a bathroom, kitchen area, dining table and living room. It also includes a vestibule designed for flower arrangements and the placement of the coffin. Naohiko Yokata, the manager of Lastel, explains that this area is designated for quiet worship, where the body of the deceased is respectfully placed. Monks can come to offer prayers, marking the final night the family spends together. This is what makes this room special. In addition to the spacious and comfortable apartments, Lastel also provides smaller rooms for those who may feel uncomfortable keeping a casket at home. This room is designed for the deceased family members or their loved ones who still feel it difficult to move on from the loss. They can stay here for an extended period. Japan avoids embalming corpses with formaldehyde and other chemicals. Instead, preservation relies on dry ice and refrigeration. The country does not typically keep the bodies of the deceased for an extended period, a practice which dates back to a time when many people died from epidemics. Corpses waiting for cremation has become more common these days, due to the country's aging population resulting in a continual increase in the number of deaths, while the number of crematoria remains unchanged. Lastel mentioned that the issue of insufficient crematoria to support the volume of deaths is especially acute during the winter, when the death toll is notably higher. This can extend the initial 4-day queue at the crematorium to as many as 10. The company developed a solution to the problem of crematorium queues with a service tailored to the working lifestyle in Japan's fast-paced society. Funeral hotels or 24-hour funeral parlours are facilities that have established Lastel's name in the business and are gaining popularity. This contemporary morgue offers the facility for relatives to pay their respects to the deceased around the clock. Taking advantage of its proximity to the train station, Lastel has evolved into a funeral hotel business. Behind the funeral home is a vast refrigerated area, capable of accommodating 20 corpses. Relatives can enter at any time by giving the name of the deceased in the lobby. The body will then be transferred from the refrigerator to a chapel of rest, offering an opportunity for relatives to pay their respects and bid farewell as they wish. Despite being a business openly dealing with death and being situated in the heart of the city, Lastel has never had any complaints in the decades since its establishment. On the contrary, the business has flourished, attracting attention from the general public, with people even stopping by to inquire before the need arises. The manager of Lastel tells us that most people who visit for consultation before their passing are women. They typically seek advice for themselves, their families and their husbands. Men rarely come for consultation, possibly because they prefer to avoid contemplating their own demise. Preparing for death is a common practice in Japanese society, renowned for its orderliness, meticulous preparation, and respect for others. Hills adorned with trees and flowers grace the Shinkoji Temple in Chiba Prefecture. At first glance, it may appear a typical garden in which worshippers can stroll and relax. In reality, this location operates another important facility related to death, a modern cemetery, which does away with the traditional large Japanese stone tombs. Sasaki Makie, an administrative officer at Shinkoji Temple, took us on a tour of the cemetery, which has been here for over a decade. Discreet but clear stone slabs are arranged throughout, bearing the names of the plot owner. Makai mentions that most of the names on the stone slabs are in pairs. Some slabs may include the name of a beloved pet, such as a cat. Makai informs us that one of the reasons this style of cemetery is so popular is its significantly lower maintenance costs compared to traditional stone tombs. One plot measures 3.3 meters square, equivalent to the size of 2 tatami mats, a unit of measurement widely understood by everyone in Japan. In one grave, the remains of 18 people can be buried. The first person costs around $5,500 and the subsequent inhabitants cost around $2,700. Pets are interred free of charge. This price includes a spirit table, which will be placed in the temple along with annual prayers recited by the temple for another 32 years. Makai tells us that traditionally the ashes are placed in a white urn and buried. This service, however, buries the ashes in the soil without a container. Over time, the ashes return to their natural state, which is a concept that people appreciate. Additionally, due to the context of a Japanese society in which the number of single people is increasing, there are smaller plots that are less expensive and popular among single women. While lower costs and easier maintenance than traditional cemeteries are reasons for their popularity, the natural environment is the main reason for this type of green cemetery. Okamoto Wako, the abbot of Shinkoji Temple, explains that environmental harm is a significant issue for Japan. Building a cemetery as evidence that a person once lived requires the cutting down of some trees and making adjustments to the land. This involves cement flooring and displacing some animals. These actions are detrimental. The total area is divided into 1,500 plots, of which 1,000, or approximately 70% of the total area, have already been reserved by 1,900 people. Their selection criteria are mostly based on their favourite plants and flowers planted in the area. The abbot of Shinkoji Temple says that Japanese people rarely express their own opinions. They tend to conform to the majority in most respects. He thinks that deep down, they're actually strong-willed and regard their opinions as their own. Therefore, a preference for certain flowers or a piece of land without any external influence is likely an easily understood trend. Although there is now a new type of cemetery where the ashes of many people are buried together under one large tree arranged as a garden, this temple still insists on maintaining the original form of a forest. This decision takes into account the benefits to the surrounding community. The business around death has grown amid Japan's population crisis, reflecting various aspects of Japanese society in terms of economics, culture, and the deep-rooted traditions of Japanese people. In a nation that lives according to rules and regulations, people are instilled with responsibility from childhood. A Japanese attendee at the Life Ending Industry Expo mentions that he's come here because his death is his issue, which he has to address independently. It would perhaps be of benefit if more people adopted this approach. Japan is a considerate and empathetic society in which people avoid being a burden to others, even to their close relatives, children and grandchildren. It is a society wherein people tend to plan carefully and meticulously. The attendee tells us that his father did not leave him with the burden of his funeral arrangements. So, he also wants to keep his daughter from taking on the responsibility of storing possessions. This is the main reason that brought him to this expo. The Japanese intellect is highly complex. Everyone is taught to be self-reliant, not to be a burden to others, and to be disciplined and united when problems arise. At the same time, It is a society that is highly individualistic, with unfulfilled lifestyle needs that quite possibly must wait until the end of their life.
これから
Wako says that, even though Japan is a collective society, deep down it is actually quite individualistic. When it comes to funerals or residential environments, there are a wide variety of needs. Another implication is that in the future, the influence of religion will diminish significantly. Traditions will not hold the same sway as they did, and the freedom to choose what one prefers will become more prominent. The aging population crisis in Japan has prompted a proposal to revise the definition of elderly, raising the threshold from 65 to 75 and possibly higher. This is because the original definition is quite outdated and doesn't fit the current era in which the 65 and over population remains healthy and generally wants to continue working. A serious issue for the government is the overburdened working age population, who are expected to generate income for the country's welfare, especially for care of the elderly. It's anticipated that the number of working age people bearing the cost of elderly welfare will decline from 2.3 to 1.3 people per elderly person in less than 50 years. Death is one of life's certainties. Japan's rapidly aging society and shortage of working age people have necessitated significant changes of lifestyle and rituals associated with death. Various services, facilities and tools are being crafted to align with the prevailing social conditions and to streamline the funeral process for people. Many Japanese prefer not to lean on their children and family when they pass away. Some may not have family at all. The result of which is many elderly Japanese making their own funeral arrangements in advance by employing the services provided by numerous funeral service providers. In the near future, it is estimated that nearly 2 million Japanese people will be dying each year. This projection has led the undertaking industry, a business that caters to such needs, to expand in response to market demand. The challenge, however, arises from the overwhelming number of funerals set against the shortage of crematoria and people to officiate at ceremonies for the departed.